Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Frailey. I'm the founder of BreakpointTrades.com. As the name suggests here, we are master technical traders. We've been bringing you advanced technical analysis, market commentary, trade ideas, and mechanical systems like you see here with our SPY system. We've been doing this since 2003 for individual traders, mom and pops, as well as professional high-end institutions, some of which I consult with on a weekly basis. Also, if you haven't become a subscriber to Breakpoint Trades, consider subscribing. Our best membership is our six-month membership. You could also, if you're not ready to subscribe, you could sign up for our free newsletter right here. Typically, I send out a free newsletter once a week or every other week. Okay, so let's get back to the topic at hand for this video. First off, happy 2022, everyone. It's going to be interesting to see how this year unfolds. But anyway, this video, it's an educational video. It's something I wanted to do for a very long time. It's going to be on an extremely powerful indicator tool, system, methodology, and technical analysis called Symmetry. All right. Stick around for the video. I think you're going to be amazed at how powerful and simple and useful this tool is. As far as how long this video will be, it's not a scripted video. I usually go off the cuff. That's how my videos are. That's my style. My guess is probably about 30 minutes, but again, I suggest you stick around because you're going to be amazed at this Symmetry tool. And it's something we use at Breakpoint Trades all the time. First off, as this corny slide shows, there is no holy grail indicator system in trading or technical analysis. All right. Too many people, when they start technical analysis, they're looking for that holy grail, that perfect indicator out there. It doesn't exist. All right. But, you know, you'll find that there's some very powerful tools and systematic approaches, and that's what Symmetry is. So here's another one of the corny slides. So again, there's no holy grail indicator, chart pattern, or strategy in technical analysis. As technicians, over the years, we gather bits of information, puzzle pieces, for example, like I show here, various puzzle pieces on the chart. For our trader's toolbox to help us trade our plan, you know. There's price action, which to me is the most important. That's candlesticks, patterns, chart patterns like trend lines, coils, flags, wedges, volume, and of course, symmetry, which is what we're going to focus on here. And of course, you have your mathematical type indicators like the MACD, stochastic, moving averages, Bollinger Band, CCI, etc. All right. Again, we're going to focus on symmetry. I will be referring to some of these other technical items like MACD or stochastic, divergence, but the primary, as well as patterns, but the primary thing is going to be on symmetry. Symmetry is simplicity. It's based on price action, and that's what makes it so powerful. You know, too many of us, you know, we look at tons of indicators, or it's easy, especially when you start off with technical analysis, it's easy to throw 1,000 indicators on your chart and just get overwhelmed with it. Remember, indicators are averages of price action. They lag price action. So price action is really your most powerful tool in technical analysis. That's your chart patterns, volume, you know, and symmetry. You know, the old school, or let's just call them, you know, the really high-end technicians who are really good at their trade will tell you, don't have too many indicators on your charts. In fact, if you couldn't have any indicators on your charts, you could get by simply with candlesticks, volume, and price action. All right. So here's some various steps of symmetry. You first note the established trend at hand, whether it's an uptrend or a downtrend. All right. You then observe the point depth of the pullbacks in the established trend, again, whether it's an uptrend or downtrend. The largest pullback in the relative trend establishes the important symmetry number. A pullback then larger than symmetry, there is some art, as there is with technical analysis with things, represents a break in symmetry. A break in symmetry tells you with pretty high certainty that the odds of that immediate trend is over, okay, whether it's an uptrend or a downtrend. Symmetry can also be used as, say, target zones where price may find support in an uptrend or resistance in a downtrend and offer a place to reestablish a position in that trend. It provides a systematic approach to technical analysis. There's still some art to it, but whereas a lot of other technical analysis is very subjective. All right. So moving on, here's a slide, and this one here focuses primarily on the break in symmetry. So as this discusses, symmetry is a very powerful tool in technical analysis. The beauty of symmetry also is that it's a universal function, guys. It can be used across multiple time frames, whether it's a monthly, weekly, daily, intraday, 60-minute, 5-minute, 1 minute, doesn't matter, and across any trading instrument, stocks, futures, indexes, currencies, it doesn't matter. So there's no fit to this, and that's the beauty of it. It's a universal thing. So kind of like I showed two images here. Here's an uptrending instrument. Here's a downtrending instrument. So one first notes the established trend at hand, whether it's an uptrend or a downtrend. So this is the beginning of an uptrend. You then observe the point depth of the pullbacks in the relative established trend. The largest pullback in the relative trend establishes the important symmetry. So for example, you're uptrending here, you're pulling your pullbacks, you note the pullback depth of these pullbacks, or you're downtrending here, you note the strength of the rallies. Okay. A pullback larger than the symmetry number represents a break in symmetry. So here you can see this pullback is larger than these. That represents your break in symmetry. That greatly increases your odds that this trend is done and you'll form a lower high. Same here. You're downtrending, you get your rally attempts, lower highs. You then get a rally larger than these. That's a break in symmetry. That gives you high odds that a higher low will form. Why is this important? Because let's say here you're long. You could exit here, or you could look to establish, you exit your longs on the next lower high bounce, which you expect, or take a low risk short here. Or here, for example, you know, if you're short, you could look to exit the short or exit the short on the pullback, or look to go long because you're looking for a higher low. Also, this slide here shows you that symmetry can be used, instead of just worrying about this respective break-in trend, use the symmetry as a guide in your trend at hand. So if long, symmetry can be used as a profit target area to scale out of shares, or if one wishes to buy a pullback, it could give you very objective targets to place buy limit orders at. So for example, the Qs here, by the way, all these lines are the same length, so they're clone lines. So here in the triple Qs, you pull back, you note that symmetry, you clone the line, and then when you start selling off here, you could use it as a area to look to go long, unless it is broken. It was a great place to go long. Same here. Same with Tesla here. 360 point pullback back here. This pullback was 357, obviously the same for government work. That gave you an area to look to go long, right? We didn't break symmetry. This stock is downtrending, so one could have looked to sell these rallies or go short. Notice every rally was basically the same. So it gave you, for a short, it gave you an objective area to short from. Tesla here, notice it gave you an objective price target up here where price is pulled back. And I took this chart a few days ago, so Tesla has pulled back another couple days from here. Okay. Here's an example of a stock that is uptrending. Get your pullbacks, you break symmetry here. Then you look for your lower high because you broke symmetry. This immediate trend you know was over. You got your lower high, so that could have been an area to short or exit longs that you maybe not have exited on the symmetry break. And then you expected a downtrend. And notice you clone the lines of your first rally. Notice every rally was symmetrical, roughly the same, and stalled out exactly at these point rally attempts. Okay. So now what we're going to do, again, I could show you a lot of these static charts where I've drawn everything in like this. But I think the best way to learn, guys, is for me to simply go to a blank chart and draw the trend lines for you in real time. So let's do that with a few various instruments. And then what I suggest is that you do this in practice on your own. So we're first going to start out with, and this is what I've shown symmetry for many years, and I've always started out with the S&P, so that's what we're going to do here. This is a weekly S&P 500 chart. You can see we're going back to the beginning of the secular bull market in March 2009. Remember from our symmetry explanation, you notice, or you want to first establish the trend at hand, whether some significant major low or major high. Well, clearly the March 2009 was a major low, so we're going to look at uptrending symmetry. Okay, so that begins right here. I also have some lines over here that I've pre-used just to make it simpler. So let's go ahead and pull this here. As you can see here, this is our first, again, our major bottom was here, so that began our major uptrend, right? We get a little pullback here. By the way, we can also note this. But this is our first major pullback in the uptrend. You see that? Then, a couple lines here left. So let's clone this major pullback. So notice we get some pullbacks here. These are less than this. So that tells us, hey, we could pull back here, but there's no break in symmetry. The trend is still at hand, all right? But notice here, we move it to here. Notice this pullback is almost exactly the same as here. So it's symmetrical. Why is that important? You did not break your trend here. So even though it could have been a scary time on this pullback, it was a 4-week pullback. We had just come off the March 2009 low, so people were still super bearish, still worried about end of the world, stuff like that. But it told you, hey, this pullback was less than that, or did not exceed that. In fact, it was the same. So we did not break that trend. Notice I left this here because remember, the name is symmetry. You'll find that even these smaller pullbacks, like you see here, roughly symmetrical. See that? So these little pullbacks here, you could have had an idea that they would end based on using this initial pullback. All right. But anyway, this is important because A, we know that this trend is not over. In fact, you could have looked to buy some of this if you were not long. You know, let's say you sold out here because, you know, you saw this little MACD divergence in place, whatever, and you had a nice exit here. But the symmetry, you could have looked to buy here again. Then we had another move up here. Now, essentially, this ended up, from an Elliott wave perspective, this is a 5-wave uptrend. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. It's not really that important right now, but anyway, let's take this line and clone it yet again. We clone it. Notice what happens here. This pullback off this high, this exceeds these pullbacks. So we have a break in symmetry, right? We have a break in symmetry. So what does that tell us? Kind of like this example, that a lower high is likely to establish itself. And that's exactly what happens. Okay, we get a break in symmetry, we go down lower, we get a rally attempt, and we get a lower high. Move this over here. See that? So that totaled for pretty high odds. Also, let's use this vertical line that represented your break in symmetry. Obviously, that didn't end the bull market. It just ended this initial 5-wave uptrend. Okay. Why is this important? So if you were long there, you could have stopped out of any remaining shares on this candle. Or if you didn't sell, you could have exited on this candle, or you could have used this lower high to establish a short. Now, it wasn't much of a pullback, but you did get a 2-week nice sell-off there. Down below the weekly Bollinger Bands here, which was a good buy-in opportunity. But now, we do the exact opposite. We now, these rally attempts, we mark the uptrend bounce. Okay. And then we clone that line. What happens? We break symmetry here, don't we? We go higher. So that says, hey, this pullback was over. What was this pullback? Well, we can see it. It was simply an A, B type C correction. You know, this was a 5-wave uptrend. All right. Again, that's not the goal of this video isn't to go into Elliott wave, but that's essentially what we had. So anyway, we broke symmetry here, so we know, hey, that ABC is probably over, right? We had a break in symmetry to the upside. So what are we looking for? Higher low, which we get. Higher low right here. Okay, it's important because if we're short here, we want to be out of shorts, or we get out of those shorts in the pullback, or better, we buy the pullback, higher low, we go long here. All right, now what do? We just do the same thing again. We use the same blue trend lines here. So this initial uptrend here, we clone it. We get a pullback here. Is this pullback deeper than this? No, it just pulled back in that uptrend. This pullback here, the same as this. So if you had exited up here for some reason, you could see your RSIs were overbought. Maybe you took some profits up here. You could have used this to reestablish a long. Remember, put a buy stop limit at the symmetry target. It's a good area to bounce. So we bounced, formed another higher low, another high. You can see this high had RSI divergence, MACD divergence. All right. So then what happened? We broke symmetry again. See that? So we broke symmetry. So the same thing. We had another 5-wave uptrend. We broke symmetry. So that said, hey, look for a lower high to form, which is what exactly happens. So we could have got out of existing longs on this lower high that we expected, or we could have established a short, which would have been awesome, as this was a pretty hard correction. This was the 2011 August correction. This was about a 25% correction. Okay, this was a pretty deep one. Okay. Now, we do the same thing. Let's measure these bounces. Here's our first rally attempt. Clone that line. What happens? We break symmetry again. Right? Break symmetry. So we know that we're starting uptrend again. We look for a higher low to establish. You have very high odds that that's going to happen, which it does. You can make sure to be long again, and again, you just do the same thing. You go ahead and measure these pullbacks in that various uptrend. Okay. This pullback here is the same as this. So symmetry. This did not break this initial trend, even though it would have been scary. Could have been an area to buy or stay intact. We did not break the trend. Clone this line again. Notice no break in symmetry. And same here. This pullback was the same as this and this. So I could continue this on, but you could see how symmetry just very useful here about noting your trends, giving you very objective analysis of the trend at hand, areas to buy, areas to sell, etc. So that's the S&P weekly. Again, we could continue this. Let's move on, and here's another S&P. Now this is the daily chart here, and what is this? This is that 2011, that 25% sell-off, all this chop. Let's take a look at some of this here. All right, so this was obviously big sell-off, right? First rally attempt here. You measure it, clone it. Notice this next rally attempt stalled exactly there. So if you went long on this pullback, you had a perfect price target to exit along. By the way, your downtrend really began here. So you broke symmetry here, and so you did form a higher low here for which you did. You did form a slight higher low here for a trade. And again, using that symmetry, like I said, you could have used this rally attempt, which was, this rally attempt was perfectly symmetrical to this one. Now, cloning this line, obviously this rally didn't break symmetry. This rally didn't break symmetry. This rally did. All right, so you know this immediate correction was over on this, say, break in symmetry. By the way, some other caveats of symmetry, what I would typically do is, so this rally was a little bit smaller than these. Let's see if this rally was symmetrical to this one. Let's make this a different color. Boom, and it was. This rally was identical to this. So you see why this tool gets its name, Symmetry. So again, we broke symmetry over here. That told us with high odds we're going to form a higher low, or that this downtrend correction was over. Okay. So now you can see what happens. We rally up. We actually don't pull back immediately. And that's why on symmetry breaks, I'll usually just, if I'm looking for a long, I'll take a position there because sometimes you don't get an immediate pullback. Here, you rally up quite a bit more. Notice that? But then we form a higher low here. We were expecting it because of the respective symmetry break here. See that? Also, this pullback, remember, use your other tools in technical analysis. Let's measure it via fibs. This pullback exactly to the 61.8 fib. This is always an important fib. So again, to me, that's my favorite fib, guys. You have the 38%, 50, but this 61 is very important. You can see there we formed a higher low. We expected a higher low because of this symmetry breakback here, didn't we? Okay. Let's clear some of these out. Again, I'm not going to spend all the time on this, but you know, you can see some of these pullbacks. So that pullback there. Now this pullback was identical to this pullback. Now it does form a higher, this does form a lower high though, okay? But it didn't. Now what about this pullback? Ah, this pullback symmetrical to this. So you see how this tool gets its name, Symmetry. Notice these pullbacks, this choppy, same. They're the same. They're the same. Pretty cool. Let's look at the current S&P. As you know, we just ended 2022. So here's the daily S&P chart. So let's measure these pullbacks. So here's, what is this, February? Let's just measure this total pullback here, all right? Okay, so let's clone this line. Obviously, none of these broke symmetry. You see this? This pullback, this pullback, this pullback. This pullback here gave you the price target, right? Same with this one. So you see how these major corrections, while they were scary, they didn't really break symmetry, and they gave you rough price targets, all right? Again, but use symmetry with respect to the other pullbacks, all right? You'll find that those typically are important as well. So this was a nice pullback here, right? Notice this pullback, roughly the same. Also, look at this pullback. Make this a different color. Looks symmetrical to this one. So an example of just symmetry. Here's another ETF, IYW. It's the technology ETF. Same time frame. This one goes back, I'm going back to October 2020. So let's draw our, this is our first major pullback in there. Okay. Obviously none of these little pullbacks mattered. All right. We broke a symmetry here. We formed a lower high. This pullback here, roughly equal to this one. In uptrends, you'll find that typically your corrections are ABC. So let me take this one here, measure it to here. And these also gives you nice price targets. Your initial decline, notice your second decline, which this was an A, B, C, was a target. All right. Let's go ahead and measure the total pullback of this, because this was kind of the larger pullback. Let's make the color change. All right, so we're going to clone this line. And notice this pullback we had here, it gave you a rough price target of the pullback in September, which wasn't exceeded. So even though that was scary, it told you, hey, no break in the long-term symmetry here. All right. Cloning this pullback was roughly equal to this pullback. You see that? And then now let's measure these rally attempts. Rally attempt was, this rally attempt was equal, and so far we've pulled back. We'll see what happens early this year now, but you can see that gave you a rough target here in the short term. Let's take a look at this stock. We can see kind of one of those, what we call Christmas tree patterns, uptrend and downtrend all the way back. But let's go ahead and measure how one would have used this. So for example, you can see your, make this blue, get a pullback here. We're clearly uptrending, right? We clone that. So right here, we do break a symmetry. It goes lower. So what are we looking for? We're looking for that lower high, which we get here. Now, again, did it break the overall immediate trend? No, but it did give you your lower high. Okay. Also, let me go ahead and measure. Let's see, that pullback, did it give us roughly this ABC? Approximately. Let's just move that out of the way. So this was our new established deepest pullback in the uptrend. So we clone that, we add it to the high here. Clearly, you can see how this continues lower. Clearly, we break symmetry in here. So now we know with, again, higher odds that this trend could be over and to look for some sort of lower high. And that's what happens here. We get our lower highs here. In fact, this trend ended up being over, unlike this one, which was probably some sort of fourth wave. we did get a lower high, but then we continued higher. So here we got our longer term break and symmetry uptrend. All right. Now, so if you're still long this stock, you need to be out or exit on these rally attempts or go short better. So now let's measure the rally on these and use this as our new symmetry on the downtrend. Okay, let's clone this line. So we got various bounce attempts here. You know, they don't break symmetry, they're smaller. Let's use this low here. We use this low, notice the rally stopped exactly here. Gave a perfect price target to, you know, if you had bought this to sell it or to go short. Continue the process, clone the line. Boom, this gave us roughly our price target on this rally. You see that? Price ended a big downtrend here, lost the 200-day moving average, clone that line again. Boom, see this? Gave us our price target right here. Gave us a great area to short. So my method is I'm putting sell limit orders up here to go short. This gives me the target to do so. Let's clone it again. Boom. This roughly gave us our high here as well. So notice every major rally attempt has been capped by the original symmetry bounce. Okay, so back here we knew with pretty high odds that this trend was over. We looked for lower highs, which we got, and then it gave us very objective areas to look for a short. Now clearly for this trend to be over, you need a break in symmetry. So you need a rally larger than this. Now that's quite a bit. Does that mean you necessarily have to wait for this price to go over, say 24? No. As I showed a client the other week, I thought it would bounce down here. We had a MACD cross. I also drew I showed him how you could have drawn a aggressive wedge here. So I saw a long opportunity down here, but in order to break long-term symmetry, it needs a rally above this, okay? All right, so that's an example of symmetry on that. Let's look on Tesla. Very popular stock. So Tesla here. I found this very interesting. This Tesla here roughly had a 360 point pullback here. And then we had a very strong pullback here in November into December. It was nearly the same. In fact, it was only 3 points difference. I think this was 360 or 361, and this was 357. So it gave you an area to place a buy stop, or no, a buy limit, waiting to buy this. Okay? So that long-term uptrend symmetry was not broken there. Let's look at a daily chart of Tesla. Consequently, just from a simple perspective, this pullback here roughly found support at the January highs. Okay, that was well known, right? But it's pretty amazing that this pullback gave you roughly the same target. You see that? Remember, I just showed you the weekly here. Okay. Anyway, Tesla topped out back here in early November. You had a black candle there. You had price going parabolic here. So you knew that this was likely to top out here anyway, right? In fact, one of my low risk, I pointed out a low risk short on Tesla here, was shorting the low of the doji here, putting a stop right there. In fact, that would have been a great short. Okay. That worked out. But let's look at symmetry here. So first off, you can see, Let's just use these pullbacks here. These little pullbacks. Notice how, in fact, yeah, this was a little symmetry break, so you formed a lower high. So let's use this. Notice how these pullbacks were roughly all symmetrical. So using, you obviously had a symmetry break on this big candle. Okay. So now we knew with high odds to look for a lower high, which we got. Okay. Now, again, you had plenty of evidence from your other technical perspective. You had this parabolic trend. You had the black candle, but your symmetry confirmed right here. Now, this candle was a big down move. Would I have waited for the, if I hadn't exited Tesla up here on this black candle or went short, would I have waited for this downtrend, this candle to close to exit my Tesla? No. The pullback here, I think, was roughly 80 points. So if you measure here, let's use the symmetry, 700 to 620, 80 points. So take 80 points from here, you're looking at 1160. So I could have put a buy stop or a sell stop at 1160, 1155, something like that. So I would have stopped out, say, roughly the upper portion of that candle, right there. If I hadn't already exited from, just the parabolic nature of the black candle, stuff like that. I wouldn't have waited for this big down candle to close, is my point. Okay? So we broke symmetry, we looked for a lower high, which we got. For breakpoint trades, when we had that big move up there, I considered this initial move down a wave A, and I said more than likely it's going to form a wave B lower high, just based on price action, but the symmetry break told me to look for a lower high, and that's exactly what happened. So we got a wave A, B, and then potentially C down, which again found support at this higher low. I'm at the high here from January. Previous resistance became support, and we also had this big symmetry target, didn't we? Right? Consequently, move that out of the way. Let's measure the symmetry rallies. Remember, after you break symmetry, measure your rally. So that was our first big rally. All right. So I went long Tesla down here on the retest of this previous resistance become support, as well as the, like I said, weekly symmetry target, which perfectly hit. So I went long down here. Put my arrow there to show where I went long. Where was my target for my long? You betcha, symmetry. Clone this line. Boom. It gave a perfect price target here, where so far, at least over the last 3 days, price has pulled back from. So you see how that symmetry gave me a confirmed into this trend. Told me to look for a lower high, which we got, and it also gave me a target down here to buy, and gave me a target to sell. Okay. This video is getting rather long. I could do the same thing here with Bitcoin. I was planning to do that, but let's go ahead and skip that. We'll look at one more here. Let's look at Microsoft. You can see this pullback roughly equal to this pullback, roughly equal to, these pullbacks all the same. Okay. Last thing we'll look at, even just from an intraday perspective, I use symmetry all the time. So I'll use symmetry, say, on the intraday indexes to sometimes take a trade on ES futures or the S&P. So here's an example. This is a 5-minute chart. Each candle represents 5 minutes on the S&P. So you can see symmetry in action here. So what is this, back in December 1st? So I'll use it with respect to that day. So you get your rally attempt, pullback. So I measure that pullback here, larger than this, break in symmetry. So what do I look for? A lower high. So that would have been an area to short. And again, that was a great short. As you can see, S&P here dropped, 150 points from the high. That was a hell of a sell-off in one day. But, measure the rally attempt here. We broke symmetry right the next day. I looked for a higher low, which we got an ABC correction. Then I used a symmetry target here as a price target of this rally that next day. Some other examples of intraday symmetry that I made in the past. Here's these are 5-minute charts of the S&P where I'm using the symmetry on an intraday basis. Here we break symmetry. I then look for a lower high, which we get. Here's an old one, 10-minute chart. This is back in S&P was 2,400. So this is years ago, but one I'd posted in real time. But this shows an example of symmetry with some intraday with a candle with a pattern, inverse head and shoulder pattern. So you had a high up here, rally attempt about 5. Again, this is only a 10-minute chart. So 5.5 points. This rally stopped. They were exactly symmetrical. This rally with this one were the same. This was roughly the same. Then this rally here was larger, $6.30. That was a break in symmetry. That said to look for a higher low, which we got. We also had an inverse head and shoulder pattern, so we basically formed a right shoulder of an inverse head and shoulder pattern. So again, guys, I could go on and on about this, but I hope this gives you a really good example of symmetry. It's something we use all the time at Breakpoint Trades, and what I suggest that you do is get some charts and practice drawing this. You'll be amazed at how symmetrical you see various rally attempts, various pullbacks, and when you see various breaks in symmetry, it tends to be very powerful. It tells you with high odds of forming a lower high or a higher low. All right, that does it, everyone. This video has been long enough, 42 minutes long. Again, everyone, thank you for following Breakpoint Trades. Thank you for being a subscriber, and we'll see what 2022 brings us. Take care.